Most beginners who are completely new to the retirement game, they would first open a Roth IRA and then they would proceed to ask themselves, so now what? The truth is, they honestly don't know what to invest in or how to even get started. But don't worry, in this video, I'm going to be explaining step by step exactly what you should be investing in moving forward. But first, I want to let you know a few things. Number one, you do not need to become an expert at investing. You don't need to be constantly watching the market 24/7, please, for your own mental health and also for your own financial future. What you do need instead, however, is a simple system, a strong consistency in the long run, and a little bit of basic research overall. At the end of the day, investing into high quality stocks is not hard, especially when it comes to index fund, which I will be talking about very soon. However, you should still at least understand what you're buying into in order to build your strong conviction so that you can avoid as many mistakes as possible moving forward. Here is a simple investing strategy that works for a lot of Americans that you can also adopt for yourself for the rest of your life. First off, you're going to want to find the best ETFs. What are those? Well, first of all, they need to be low expenses. In the long run, you're going to be investing your money into the Roth IRA for the next 10, 20, 30 years, consistently every single month. That's a lot of money. So you want to keep your expenses as low as possible. What are your expenses? Well, that's the amount of money that you're paying the bank or whatever program you're using, like Fidelity, Charles Schwab. A good expense ratio is below this amount of number. Anything above that, maybe you might want to reconsider. Anything below that is great. Additionally, you also want to look for high quality ETFs, not just a random ETF you find online. Specifically, you want to look for those that are diversified so that instead of investing into one individual company, you can instead own the whole market. And that is exactly the main purpose of the index fund, or in other words, aka ETFs. They're basically the same thing and they serve one purpose: diversification. And with all of that said, we can now talk about the specific ETF for you to invest in starting today. Option number one, the US market, aka the S&P 500. This one is one of the strongest options for you to invest in long term because historically in the past 30 to 40 years, the US has been the leading market in terms of market growth. In other words, if you had owned the S&P 500 in the past 30 to 40 years, you would have beaten a lot of other markets. And that also includes a lot of individual stocks as well. And a very popular and high quality ticker for the S&P 500 would be VOO. VOO is one of the most popular, most well-known ticker for the S&P 500. And you can find it on Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, whatever, but it's made by Vanguard. If you buy that, you essentially own a small share to 500 of America's largest companies. If you want to keep your portfolio as simple as possible, you could just only own that for the next 30 to 40 years. And that's it. And honestly, that would be more than enough, arguably. And yes, it's an actual legitimate strategy that a lot of Americans also use to keep their portfolio as simple as possible while still getting a high return long term. Now, let's just say you want to branch out. You want to get more growth in your portfolio than just the S&P 500. Well, that leads me to option number two, growth. And a very popular ticker for the growth index fund would be the SCHG. That's the Charles Schwab Growth Index Fund. And historically, it has returned a little bit higher than the S&P 500. But remember, in good times, it will perform better than the S&P 500 because it's a growth index fund. But in bad times, it will also perform worse. So you have to be prepared for that and keep your conviction through the bad times. Otherwise, if you sell it, you're basically going to be ruining your own portfolio. Please don't do that. And with those two said, if you're young, these two are a very strong option for you. There is a world out there where having a portfolio of just these two is a realistic choice. It could be a very smart choice as well, especially and specifically if you're young. Because if you're younger, you can tolerate more risk long term because you don't need to withdraw money from your Roth IRA or your 401k, right? So if that's the case, if you just keep your money in there, in just these two, the next 20, 30, 40 years, you can maximize your return. But you never know, especially when you're older, you want to be more flexible with your portfolio, or you want to have more safety in your portfolio. Well, that leads me to option number 3, having a dividend ticker. Historically, by having a dividend ticker, it keeps your portfolio more stable, especially through the rough market times. However, the downside to that is that when the market does well, it also goes up less than, let's just say, the S&P 500 or the growth index fund. So please just be aware of that. It's good for older people who wants more stability in their portfolio, but for long-term growth, let's just say you have 30, 40 more years, dividend, I would not recommend it. But a lot of people recommend it, so you can do your own research. But a good ticker for that would be SCHD. Now, this one is also Charles Schwab, and it's also really high quality. So if you want your portfolio to be stronger and more stable, add that as well. It could also be smart if you're young to add that as well, because of the fact that a lot of people can't stomach a market downturn, especially when your portfolio is just mostly these two. You might be experiencing in the future like a 50% drop. If you add this 50% drop, it's gonna turn into like 40, 30%, which is a lot more tolerable than 50%. So essentially, if you can't stomach a drop like 50%, well, it might be a good idea to add this one. And lastly, if you wanna make your portfolio even stronger and expose yourself to the international index fund, well, that leads me to number 4. And a good ticker for that would be the VXUS. Now, don't think that because the ticker is called US, it means that it's in the US. No, this is the international ticker. This will expose you to international stocks, such as companies from Japan, from China, from Europe, whatever. And historically, this could be a smart play because the US market, you never know, it might not dominate for the next 40 years, 50 years. It might be better for your portfolio to expose yourself to international stocks, just to keep it more safe, keep it more stable, and keep the growth going. Now, in order to build the strongest possible portfolio long term, well, having all 4 of these could be a really smart option. And on top of all of this, I would like to add a bonus ETF. And that is going to be the mid-cap growth ticker SMMO. This is going to be exposing you to the mid-cap companies because of the fact that these are mostly large caps, which large caps are going to be your Apples, your Microsoft, your Nvidia. What mid-caps are instead are going to be more your smaller retail stores like these. And I believe that some of those can have really strong long-term growth. And so as a result, if you also want to expose yourself to those companies, well, that is a really strong and high quality ticker. And also, please keep in mind that these are not the only tickers in their field. S&P 500, there's a lot of other tickers. For large market cap growth, there's a lot of other tickers. So please do your own research for the best one. But the reason why I gave you these is because they're really high quality tickers by themselves. Which now leads to our next topic. Now let's talk about what not to do. Number 1, day trading. Never, ever, ever do that. Essentially, you don't need to be constantly watching and buying and selling your investments. That's basically what day trading is, but in a very good light. Day trading goes much deeper than that. Some people become degenerates with stocks. Yes, that can happen. Just have conviction in your long-term strategy and you will build your wealth. Secondly, you don't want to be chasing hype stocks or crypto meme stocks or whatever. Most hype investing is inconsistent and unreliable, and the majority of people actually lose their money from them. Only the top people are able to sell for profit. Trust me, according to statistics, you're not going to be one of them. You might as well just not play in that unfair game. But if you just can't help yourself, if you have to gamble, a good rule of thumb is just to do it with money that you're willing to lose. Let's just say tomorrow you're willing to lose $100, do it with that amount of money. If you're willing to lose $100,000, I guess do it with that amount of money, but you will lose it. Just keep that in your mind. That's the mentality that you need to walk into the casino, crypto hype trading, or just day trading in general. If you don't have that mindset, you might ruin yourself financially. And money that you're willing to lose could boil down to 5 to 10% max of your portfolio. That's it. never ever go above that. Preferably 5% or maybe even 1%. And with that said, that leads me to the next topic. How much should you invest? Well, if you watched my previous video, you will know that you could just start small, no matter the amount. It could even be $100, but a good rule of thumb is to start with 5 to 10% of your paycheck. Every single time that you get paid, put it into your retirement account or your whatever investment account. Remember, 5 to 10% minimum. And then from there, you could build your contributions over time to 10%, 15, 20%. 20% of your paycheck is a good long-term rule of thumb. Anything above that is even better. But remember, consistency throughout your lifetime, through the long term, matters more than how much you invest. And with all of that said, in conclusion, if you're still confused as to what to do, well, here's a simple step-by-step that you can start right now after this video. Number 1, pick one high-quality ETF from today's video, preferably the S&P 500, aka VU. And then to start investing monthly or even better, weekly into it. No matter the amount, $10, $20, $50, $100, whatever, just start investing. And just do that monthly for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years until you're 59 and a half. And then, boom, you're retired, hopefully. And just remember to keep these tips in mind. Number 1, don't constantly watch your investments, and even worse, don't constantly sell or switch your investments, because at the end of the day, wealth building with long-term investing is simple, but it does require patience. And with all of that said, remember to subscribe and like this video for more investing and retirement videos just like this one. And also, remember to comment down below and let us know which ETF from this video are you going to be moving forward with. Hopefully one of them. But remember, do your own research. Find the ETFs that fits you the best. It may be from this video, it may not. Please always do your own research and find the best fit ETF for you and your investment journey. And lastly, next up, I think you should watch this video on how much you need to retire based on your age. And with all of that said, I wish you the very best in your retirement journey. Anyways, that's about it. Bye.